Welcome back to another episode of Civility Wins, the Family Law Edition. I am Kristen Goss, founder and owner of KWG, Family Legal and Mediation Services. We are your knowledgeable, warm, and gracious attorneys. And today I am very excited to have with me Carlos Gutierrez. I'm going to give a brief synopsis and bio of Carlos, and then we're going to get into the conversation, Carlos. So joining us today, as I said, is Carlos Gutierrez. Carlos has numerous qualifications. He is a real estate professional with over 20 years of experience, an expert witness in lawsuits involving standard of care, valuation, methodology, and realtor conduct. He is a court-appointed listing agent in divorce and probate cases. He is the North Miami Beach manager of 70-plus agents. He is a certified luxury home marketing specialist, and he is a trained collaborative divorce professional, just to name a few. Thank you for joining me today, Carlos.
Thank you, Kristen. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invite and for the warm intro.
Awesome. Thank you. So, Carlos, you and I met, I believe, through the collaborative community, and I have a quick question about that. So, how did you hear about collaborative?
Well, it's actually a little bit of a full circle story. So in 2014, I was one of several sponsors of a weekend-long conference for attorneys. It was educational. It was called Legal Max. So I was able to give a presentation on a Saturday and a Sunday on how attorneys can build rapport quickly using understanding of personality types, stylistic way of understanding and giving empathy to the person across the desk from them. And in the audience was Marta Alfonso, who at the time was the president of the Collaborative Family Law Institute. And after my presentation, she slipped me a note and said, I'm the president. Can you come and give lunch and learn to our collaborative practitioners? So I did. So a week or two later, from the perspective of a real estate broker, I gave a lunch and learn presentation to the Collaborative Family Law Institute membership, which was around, like I said, 2014. Lost touch, and then I proactively reached out to Marta again, who happens to now be the president of the state level of the Collaborative, the Florida Academy of Collaborative Professionals. And she said, come back into the fold, and I did. And that's how I first heard about it, and that's how I became more active in the collaborative.
That's awesome. So that's like 10 years in the making.
There's a 10-year gap. Yeah.
Yeah. And collaborative has been around, as I indicated earlier in an earlier podcast, since 1990, and has been a statute since 2017 in Florida. So it's growing, and happy to have you as part of the team.
Thank you. And I did always recognize the opportunity. So I think there's still a lot of opportunity for growth, and that's what's most energizing for me. I see what it is now, what it was 10 years ago, and I have the vision to see where it can be.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit about that vision of where you could see it could be?
I do, and we can jump around chronologically. So I've been in real estate since 2003, and since 2009, I've been working with legally complex situations. Started with probate, and then became mostly predominantly divorce, and a few other legal matters in there that involve real estate. So I've seen litigated divorces for, that entire time up until being introduced to collaborative. So it just, culturally, you expect it to be a damaging fight, expensive, draining. It's almost like a death. And then to see what collaborative can offer, what it can do, the benefits it can bring in, how peaceful of a process it can be, I personally didn't understand why more people wouldn't do it. So if I put myself in the shoes of a consumer or somebody on the outside, I could see so many more people that could benefit from this kind of process, but they just don't know about it. So that's my vision, just to get it in front of more people, to get more attorneys and other allied professionals more comfortable talking about it and just pitching it. At the end of the day, it's a sales pitch message, and I think that's where my strength is.
Awesome. I'm so happy that you are here and that you are spreading the word about collaborative, because I agree. It's something that people don't know about, and it would be beneficial for families. So thank you for what you do. So in working with professionals such as myself in the collaborative space, you would be considered an allied professional. We have other allied professionals, whether they're real estate, mortgage brokers, or divorce certified lenders. estate planning attorneys, and the list continues. How does your expertise benefit the family? And I would assume, because we're talking about the real estate industry, so in that field, where there's a family that has at least one real estate that needs to be discussed, how does your expertise come in and really help the family in that sense?
Well, there's two ways. I mean, if it's important to the family and the divorcing parties to have a long list of credentials, I have credentials for days, a very long resume that I won't bore the audience with. So if that's important to them, then they have the peace of mind knowing that somebody who has done this for a very long time, sold over 300 houses, worked with many families, and is just experienced. They have that peace of mind. That's kind of what I call the textbook. Credentials, track record, that's there. But once I actually sit in front of a family and I can speak to them, understand their children, their pets, their needs, where they were, what led to the situation. If it's a collaborative matter, it's even more beneficial because I have a little bit more insight into what they've been through, what they're going through, so that they don't have to relive that and hash that out again when I sit at their dinner table. We can just talk about them and their real estate. But either way, I have and it's not even innate, it's learned, an ability to empathize with people, understand, like I said, I even teach what it is to understand different personalities, different styles, different goals. And I can make them at ease with a very difficult process. So it's a matter of empathy. It's a matter of emotional intelligence. It's a matter of, regular intelligence. So I like to say that's what would be most beneficial to a family as far as making them comfortable. As far as the outcome, then I'll go back to the track record of success.
And you're like trilingual. Is that correct? You speak English, Spanish, some French.
Exactly. Yeah, that's good. Thank you for picking that up. Spanish is my first language. I speak a little bit of English, as you can tell. Fluent in French. It's hard to keep it because there's not a lot of practice, but I studied it middle school, high school, college, did a French immersion. I've given presentations in Paris and in the south of France at a conference called MIPIM. In French about Miami real estate. And I did a few years as an interpreter for the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, mostly in Spanish, but I also qualified in French when it was needed. And I tried my hand at Brazilian Portuguese when the Brazilians were buying it in droves right around the 2010, 2011 mark. So I have textbook knowledge of Portuguese, but again, it's hard to practice and master it.
That's awesome. That's impressive. And
thank you.
Collaborative is for every family. So that's really, really, really interesting. You could work with a lot of families with that background.
Thank you.
And so in your position, do you charge the family? I know they have to pay me as representing one of the spouses in the process, and the other attorney has to be paid. And then if there's a neutral facilitator on board, normally the spouses split the fee for that person and they split the fee for the financial. But how about you?
It doesn't function any differently than another real estate sale. So I don't get paid unless it closes. So there's a fee paid at the end of the sale. That fee has been and will continue to be negotiable. We pride ourselves on, not being the cheapest, but on being the best. We also wouldn't charge more for doing a more complex sale. And the benefit is we work as a team. So my partner and I, we don't charge because you're going to have two professionals. We don't charge because of our, support staff. So it's like you're really paying for one realtor, but you're getting a whole team of realtors. And it's not a different fee from than if somebody found me by referral and called me and said, "Can you come over and look at my house? I want to sell it."
Awesome. And unfortunately, we know that collaborative is not for every family. You really have to commit to the process, commit to being open, honest, transparent, to the privacy, to the confidentiality, and all of that. I do see that you are an expert witness and you have testified in litigated cases in court. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that and your experience as an expert witness?
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'll lay the groundwork by saying that is one of the skills that I was trying to articulate is knowing when to fight, knowing when to collaborate, knowing when to be nice, and then knowing when to stand up for your client, stand up for yourself, and defend them. So knowing when to do each of those things is very important. So it's almost, I don't want to say diametrically opposed, but in a collaborative, it's a team effort and everybody's on the same page. Like in a real estate transaction, everybody's on the same page to get from showing to offer to close. Everybody's working towards the same mission, rowing the boat in the same direction. In a litigation, it's the exact opposite. Everybody's fighting for a win. Winning is important in those litigations, the litigated divorces, but I've also done just regular commercial litigations where two people are suing each other, and the solution in most lawsuits is you pay some money, you settle, and it goes away. When there's property involved, sometimes I have to consult on the best strategy for those properties, and then at some point they may be transferred and then sold, and that sale becomes the agreed settlement. So I would testify in two manners. One, as you mentioned, is valuation methodology. So I'm not an appraiser, but if the value assigned to a property at a certain time or the way it was priced caused somebody harm financially, I can testify to that valuation. The last example was a separating couple. They weren't even married, so it was a partition action lawsuit, boyfriend, girlfriend, but they owned property together. One of them had agreed to move out and didn't, so the time that was spent with them occupied was lost rental income. So foregone income. I testified to the fact that if one of them had moved out, they would have made X thousand more dollars, and so in the end, the other party won that much more in the settlement when the property was sold. The standard of care is, did the realtor behave the way they should have? Did they do something unethical? Did they do something just sloppy? So it shows that the quality of my work, whether it's a report, verbal testimony, or a sale, can uphold the scrutiny of opposing counsel, of a court, of a judge, and it's just high quality work that I stand behind. Now, in a collaborative, that is not necessary because there's no litigation. So that's when I put my teamwork hat on, and I understand that I'm not just really communicating with the parties, which sometimes I communicate based on their preference, communicate with them together, or I communicate with them individually. Usually, obviously, because I have a partner, it's usually a group text, chat, email conversation with each of the parties or both. But in a collaborative situation, I have to make sure the financial neutral knows what's going on with the numbers. The mental health professional knows this one's not happy, that one's not happy. This one looks maybe like they want to win and they're not collaborating. And then the attorneys, of course, for all the legal part of it. So I now not only have to play like a team with the parties, but with all of the collaborative professionals. So that's a very long way to say sometimes it's a fight in a litigation, and then in collaborative, you want to work together.
And your role is different, or is actually difficult, I would say, in a collaborative matter too, because communication is key, and you're communicating with all kinds of different personalities, all kinds of different professionals, and also the spouses that are going through the process.
Absolutely, and again, I'll go back to it. That's a learned skill that I'm proud to say I've spent a lot of time and attention working on and honing, and even within the team, obviously. We cater to the parties that are getting divorced because it's traumatic. It's like I said, it's almost like a death, the transition. But working with the professionals, imagine a very left brain, logical, financial neutral may receive feedback and criticism differently from the soft, understanding, empathetic mental health professional. So it is my job to understand how each person, in a very short period of time, also you have to learn how somebody's style is as far as receiving, giving, leading, following. And then, yes, so I use that ability to work well with the team regardless of what their style is or their personality is.
And speaking of death, you also have experience with probate cases.
Yes.
So can you tell the audience a little bit about that in your role?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Procedurally, it's a little different. My team is so well organized that we do a great job of keeping on the procedures, the deadlines, everything that has to go in as far as being able to list, get a property approved for sale, and then goes back to the part of personality. So sometimes instead of divorcing parties, we're dealing with fighting heirs. So there are heirs that a lot of times, it's funny that money will do that to families, right?
Yeah.
So the heirs can begin to fight, and now we are referee with the heirs that one thinks they should have a bigger share of the sale. One is obstructing the sale because they want to keep the property. So it really is, like I said, twofold of understanding the process, the procedures, selling property in a way that just will uphold any scrutiny in court, but also just dealing with the show that can be people, personalities, ultimately wrangling people that have their own agenda to get to the end goal of selling property. And it's also, you know, that touch of empathy. Somebody has lost someone. So I'll never forget, I was working with some colleagues and we were talking about different kinds of real estate sales. And I just, somebody who only does probate, they don't do the rest of the complex legal type sales that I do. And we were just, you know, commiserating over the way these things work. And I heard her say that I've got a lot of leads coming in that I have to follow up and just a list. And it's just in my head, I'm thinking, you can't really think of a family that just lost somebody as a lead. It's just, I could never do that. So it's understanding the humanity behind people going through a hard time. And it's in no way opportunistic. It is just my skill of being able to understand when somebody's having a hard time, and then just my personality being a solver. So this is a hard time. I get it. And then I use my skill and ability to get them to a solution to maybe so they can start the next chapter a little more peacefully. And that happens in an inheritance or it happens, in a divorce. Yeah.
The real estate industry is changing rapidly, right?
Absolutely.
Especially here in Florida. Is there anything that you can provide, like any key tips on whether you're selling a home, buying a home, anything that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, my main and biggest tip is be very selective in who you work with. So we've seen in the last 10 years a revolution of consumer behavior where we are now in the Amazon economy, the Uber economy. We want to press a button, see a house, make an offer, and just make everything very mechanical. That, in my opinion, is a huge mistake. And I think that this recent settlement by the National Association of Realtors with the Department of Justice, where you are now obligated to do really two things: sign a buyer-broker agreement when you are going to engage a realtor, which is maybe a whole other conversation. But two things have come out of that. Even regardless of all the misinformation and disinformation out there, you have to sign a buyer-broker agreement that lays out your relationship with the buyer and the agent. And two, commissions are now, they've always been negotiable, but now they are no longer on the MLS. So they've always been negotiable and they will continue to be negotiable, but now they're basically front and center. So the fee comes up before, during, and right up until closing. So what it costs to buy a property has not necessarily become more affordable. And again, I said that's like another conversation. I don't want to steer the topic of what we're talking about today, but asking for a referral. Reading reviews online is good. We have over 130 plus 5-star reviews online, but ask people who have bought a property. Don't just click and go with the person who has the pretty headshot or has paid, Zillow a few $1,000 to be a prominent lead source online. Yeah.
Great tips. So listen to him.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you have any upcoming, things that are going on? Any projects? Anything new?
Well, two things that we're working on. We have done a few, and we're going to continue to do lunch and learns for attorneys. One you supported graciously, so thank you for being there. And we like to make the content and the interesting part the input from the attorneys. So I don't go up there and it's not about coming to hear me speak. So I'll do an intro, I'll give the why behind we're doing this, so it's like 10 minutes of me. But then the rest is we want professionals to get together and learn from each other. Network, maybe you can come and get a case referral from another type of attorney, which would be good. So we were looking to do the next one in November. We are also trying to grow the collaborative. So that has been a big part of my energy and effort recently. So we are reaching out to existing members of the collaborative, past members of the collaborative, figuring out how can we improve it, and then we're going to take that to another level and understand how do we educate the public in making it more digestible to collaborate as a team and understand that it's going to be a little less damaging to do a collaborative divorce versus let's fight it out. So those are the two projects: growing our base of who we refer business to and who refers us business, and growing the collaborative. And that's the priority of how we're going to do that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Looking forward to seeing great things.
Thank you.
For sure. So if you can tell the audience how they can reach you and find out more information about you.
Yeah. So one thing I would add to the tips that I gave is, obviously I would love for you to reach out to me. If everybody reached out to me, that would be fantastic. I know that's not the world we live in. But what I would suggest is, if you're not ready for a conversation with a real estate broker, maybe you're not there yet, go use this tool that we have invested in for people to understand the value of their home, the equity in it, which neighbors are selling, and how do those sales affect you. It's found at freehomevaluetracker.com. So that's freehomevaluetracker.com. And you can just go in, put your address, it'll make you double verify because we don't want to spam you. And then it'll just tell you, every couple of weeks, this is what is sold. This is how it affects you. These are, sometimes there's information about permits, like, Costco's going in down the street or Home Depot's going down the street. So it's just important for people to understand what happens in their home, in the value of their home, and what is usually the largest investment they've made in their lives. In my opinion, the smartest investment they've made in their lives is to buy a property. And just to see, my credentials. I set up a one-page, just who is Carlos? Should I hire him as an expert witness? Should I have him look at a property in a collaborative matter or for any other reason? And that's at realestateforlawyers.com. So those are the two websites, realestateforlawyers.com and freehomevaluetracker.com.
Awesome. Yeah. Carlos Gutierrez, audience, please reach out to him if you have any real estate questions. Thank you again for joining.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun. I appreciate the invite.
I appreciate you. So that is the next episode of Civility Wins, the Family Law Edition. Again, I am Kristen Goss, owner and founder of KWG, Family Legal and Mediation Services. We are your knowledgeable, warm, and gracious attorneys. If you liked what you heard today, please share, like, and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Until we see you again, take care. Thank you again for tuning in for another episode of Civility Wins, the Family Law Edition. See you next time.